Streaming live from the Paul and Catherine Ranke Memorial Studio, this is TV Free Baltimore. Support for TV Free Baltimore comes from viewers like you. Become a TV Free Baltimore member by visiting patreon.com/TV Free Baltimore.
You're watching Maryland Politics here on TV Free Baltimore.
Hello and welcome to Maryland Politics. I'm your host, Louise Baker. In the studio this evening, we have Zulieka Baysmore. She's running for Maryland House of Delegates in District 40. Her candidacy is about positive change with the right policies and resolving issues plaguing Baltimore City. Welcome, Ms. Baysmore, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me this evening.
So I'd like you to start by telling our viewers a little bit about yourself, your background, your family life, and why you chose to run for delegate.
Well, thank you first for having me on the show. And I just want my viewers to know that I am married to two times USBA boxing champion Kenny Baysmore.
Wow.
And he has been such a great support. My family is supporting my run because they know how passionate I am about making Baltimore City a great city again. I have the background. I'm a former CEO of a decade for a high-tech firm in Washington, D.C. I have worked on Capitol Hill, not as a politician. I'm a businesswoman. And I think right now it's time for us American people to really start voting people in that actually are just citizens, just people that have the business background and that know what the issues are and that are problem solvers. We need that right now. And just with good common sense, we're missing that right now. And that's the reason why I'm running for Baltimore City. Because I have been watching my new city of Baltimore for the past decade now. And I'm watching the same leadership. And what has really just touched me to my core is I'm hearing in America about people talking about racial relationships. But I'm living in a city that is primarily ran by African American leadership. And so I know that it has nothing to do with race, but it has everything to do with visionaries, with people with common sense, with people with the right ethics.
You mentioned watching your city deteriorate over the last 10 years. So let's jump right into crime, which is so prevalent in Baltimore City. And it's my understanding that someone in Baltimore City has a 1 in 61 chance of becoming a victim of violent crime.
You know, it's less than that now. Because when I first arrived in Baltimore City, and I Googled the number of the population, and it was 1.3 million in population. We're down at 567,000 plus in terms of residents. So people have been moving out of the city because the crime rate has went up so tremendously, and especially over the past 8 years.
What legislation then would you propose to curb crime in Baltimore City?
Just looking at some of the main issues, let's look at two things. Number one, if we talk about her numbers in terms of her success rate, her ratio of where our law enforcement actually apprehends the suspect, they get an indictment, and was she able to successfully prosecute that particular individual? We had last month, three suspects that had been indicted for murder, one of the most serious acts you can commit. She lost all three of those cases. And let me tell you what the problem was. It wasn't so much that it wasn't enough evidence. It was the lack of training in the DA's office. Because there was information, the standard that the defense was asking and requesting. And so it was a technicality why one of these individuals was acquitted. We need experienced prosecutors that are not more or less going to be advocates, but prosecutors that They know how to lead when it comes to the DA's office.
Do you have any other ideas on how we could support our law enforcement officers?
It's wrong that our delegates in Annapolis have each and every time refused to vote for the Police Bill of Rights. Each one of them should be protected. We're protected as delegates up under the state. The governor is protected. But you have people out there every day risking their lives, and they're not protected. They're on a salary. And we're going to get into talking about salaries. They're on a salary, folks, that if something happens where they have to defend themselves, do you really think that they have the dollars on the salary that they have to actually pay a top of defense attorney? No, it shouldn't be that way. We should be covering them. We should be protecting them. And also, it lowers the morale for others to want to even join the police department.
Couldn't agree with you more. So the Democrats' supermajority assembly overrode Hogan's veto of the Kerwin bill last year. It cost Maryland taxpayers billions of dollars. And we're seeing some schools continuing to fail our students. For instance, I think 41% of high school graduates read below a 1.0 grade point average. What can we do to change that, particularly in Baltimore City?
I'm glad you asked that question. Let me tell you, for the last 2 years, I have been lobbying, I have been advocating, and I'm not an advocate, even though people look at me, but I'm that voice for the voiceless. I'm that voice for parents that go out here and work every day, but they have lost all power when it comes to their children and education. It is time that we give parents the power back. The parents have a right to make sure that their children are being educated up to standard. When President Bush came in office and created No Child Left Behind, there were some accountability measures in that entire program. There was one thing that I loved about that program. The teachers were graded. The schools were graded. And if you failed, then guess what? Those tax dollars were going to be taken away from that school. But here in Baltimore City, they've got a game going on, folks, and it's been going on for over a decade now. The Baltimore school system has been acting as if it's a bank, where people can just make withdrawals, redirect money and everything. That's why I've been calling for Governor Hogan over the past almost 2 years to actually demand a forensic audit. Not just your average audit, but a forensic audit where we get people like Price Waterhouse, where they have forensic auditors that will look and follow the paper trail of where that money goes. When you talk about over $95 million just last year that was wasted of taxpayers' dollars, and yet we don't know what happened to those dollars, because you had hundreds of thousands of students that were supposed to be in the classroom learning that were not, and they're referred to now as ghost students. Something is wrong with that picture. So how can we resolve this issue? We've got a CEO that runs Baltimore City school systems that was earning $375,000 annual salary. She has been on that board now, a CEO, for over 4 years. Have we seen any change in the school system? No, it's gotten worse. But yet, she's got a huge raise for failing our students, folks. That's what it boils down to. She received a huge raise this year from $375,000 to $412,000. She's making more than the mayor of Baltimore City. Something is wrong with that picture. Something is wrong with that picture when you go to supposedly the board, and you demand that she be resigned or even be removed by the board, and you know what you get? You know what us citizens of Baltimore City get? We get, she's doing a good job. She's restructuring. No, my friends. Baltimore City and all of Maryland, all of you parents deserve better when it comes to education. If our high school students are testing nationally and 70% of them are reading below a third grade level. How in four hells are they going to be able to even be college bound? It's impossible. And another thing, we need to have the power to give the power back to the citizens of Baltimore. And I actually put together a petition on change.org in order for Baltimore residents to be able to vote their school board superintendent in office. That way we can hold them accountable. We can remove them if necessary.
So while we are failing to teach our students reading, writing, and arithmetic, Maryland Department of Education has recently introduced a curriculum involving gender and sexuality, and starting perhaps as young as kindergarten. So I'd like to know how you feel about that curriculum entering into Baltimore City schools.
Sex is something that a parent wants to have a sit down with their teenage children, okay? With their teenage children in order to explain the responsibility before they make that move, okay? A kindergartner, a first grader, a second grader, a third grader, a fourth grader, a fifth grader, a sixth grader, they know nothing about sex. They know they're born either a boy or a girl, okay? And when we start doing that and having books showing them touching themselves and things like that, that's almost like being a pedophile. It's almost it's a very thin line.
So obviously, if we educate our children, we need to have jobs available for them when they're done. And given your background in finance and business, what would you do to help increase job opportunities for folks in Baltimore?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because when I ran for mayor, I had 5 initiatives, and 2 of them were totally directed to resolving the issue about lack of jobs in Baltimore City. And when you have a lack of jobs, what happens when you have generations that are left behind to the point where there's no jobs for them? In West Baltimore, in the 40th district where I'm running, in 2018, they had a 25% drop in the job rates, people working. 25% unemployment rate in that sector of Baltimore City. So why do you think some of these young people are turning to crime? They're turning to carjackings. They're turning to drugs entrepreneurship. And people say, wow, I've never heard somebody put it like that. I thought it was drug dealers. No, they're drug entrepreneurs, because they found the quick product that's the wrong product. It's poison that's killing people and that's killing their neighborhoods, okay? What can we do to reverse that cause and effect? Then I say we need to bring back the skilled blue-collar certification programs to our public schools, okay? Everyone's not going to be college bound, but what we can do is Baltimore used to be the hub of the country when it came to manufacturing. And I wanted to create 9 manufacturing hubs, community hubs in the city of Baltimore, where they can create, they can be innovators, and they can manufacture, and they can be exporters.
So as we wrap up, can you please give a closing statement to those watching and tell our viewers why they should vote for you?
Thank you very much. Baltimore and Maryland, and I'm speaking to my district of 40. You guys have been praying, waiting for the right leadership. West Baltimore and Northwest Baltimore have been waiting for over a decade for revitalization without unification. This is your opportunity. You're not going to get it with the same Democratic one-party rule.
You need to offer our viewers your contact information.
So yes, for those of you that want to look at the work that I've been doing in Baltimore City and the things that I have been fighting for all of us in Baltimore City for, you can go to Baysmore, Baysmore, the number 4, Baltimore.org. and you'll be able to pull up. We've got videos on there. We've got things that we are working on right now. So it's not like I'm inexperienced. We're working on these very issues and working on. And guess what? Then I'll be able to actually sponsor the bills for you guys, David and all of you, Bill Gooding and all of you. And you can also reach me on Facebook under Zulieka Baysmore, Zulieka Baysmore, Baysmore, and it'll say for House of Delegate, Maryland House of Delegate, District 40. I can also be reached at 443-741-5748. I love you all. You guys stay safe, be blessed, but use the power of your vote this election season.
Well, thank you once again.
Thank you.
And thank all of you for watching Maryland Politics at TV Free Baltimore. Please like and subscribe our channel. Thank you, Tian Langley and Charles Wesley. I'm your host, Louise Baker. Take care, stay safe, and please join us for our next interview. Bye.
You're watching Maryland Politics here on TV Free Baltimore.